So, tying all of this together, we now need to talk about AI security governance. So, in this poll, we'd like you to tell us, do you have any kind of governance framework in place for AI? Maybe you don't. Maybe you're in progress, so to speak. Let us know.
Yeah, because I've done a bit of work on governance a while ago, and on machine learning, and you've obviously done some more recently. But because some of the early debates we had within the ISF were about that, what governance should look like, and whether your existing governance structures could do the job. And there was a lot of tightening up of acceptable use policies and things like that in the early days. But I guess it's moved on quite a bit since then.
Yeah, and I'm quite interested in this poll because even my research is from, I'm going to say, about 6 months ago or so now. Okay. So be interesting to see how things have evolved or not.
Yeah. Responses are coming in because there is that, as we said, recently, just that speed that organizations feel they have to move, they have to be adopting this, and speed and security often don't walk hand in hand.
Yeah, certainly when I first started looking into this, companies were execute first, govern second.
Yeah, I mean, because isn't that the motto, if that's the word, of Facebook? I know it's the Internet Engineering Task Force, rough consensus and running code. And I think Facebook is move fast and break things.
Yeah.
Doesn't that describe a bull in a china shop? I'm not sure that's the way I'd like to run an organization. So we've got a few responses. Does your organization have formal AI security governance in place? Yes, and it's mature, 15%. Yes, but early stage, 69%. No, but plan 7. No, and not considered 0. And don't know 7.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that is actually, if this is indicative, this is a big improvement on where we were last year, when approximately 50% of organizations had no kind of AI security governance and nothing planned.
Wow.
So it's good to see a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I guess we did try to acknowledge this in that AI theme in Threat Horizon, just sort of went from data last year to that operational side of it this year. Just what is it doing to your organization? I think that's what we try to embrace with that. But yeah, interesting that it has moved on.
Yeah, and it's good to see that organizations are understanding its importance. You need to have that governance in place because, going back to the beginning, AI can move at such speed. It's so easily scalable. And there's so many people who want to use it as well. One of the more common problems across an organization is shadow AI, where people are using corporate networks to connect their own devices so they can play around with ChatGPT, Claude, whatever their favorite LLM is. So you've got to have something there to deal with that sort of fairly low level day-to-day employee use. And then, of course, as we move more into that agentic era, you need that full architecture and governance of a whole entire plan that's going to impact how thousands or millions of agents operate across your estate. There are risks around not governing it at all. That go back to one of the risks we identified earlier around data leakage. That's a big problem when there's no governance. I said last year, 50% of organizations didn't have that governance. Even less even had an AI policy. Many had not done anything around acceptable use as well. So it was a bit of a Wild West situation 6-ish months ago. I do believe that that's improved since. So when organizations actually do govern AI, can they still benefit from its various use cases? And I think the answer is clearly yes. As cybersecurity professionals, we've had to govern everything that's come before it. And that just means putting the guardrails in place and having the right controls. And hopefully there aren't too many people out there who work in the department that likes to say no. And it's more about enabling AI through, sensible guardrails.
I do wonder sort of if that governance is connected to maturity, because I guess in many respects, governance is about managing change. And organisations that are good at that tend to be good at governance. So I wonder if there's sort of connection there as well. I know a lot of ISF members are quite mature, so maybe that's driving some of this as well.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a fair mixture, but yeah, they're sort of, on a scale of 1 to 5, they're majorly in the 3 to 5 range, I would suspect.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, all of that said, are AI risks well understood across the organisation? The answer is still very much no. Literally yesterday, I spoke to someone who now has to run a risk assessment and integrate a new AI feature into their company because their boss spoke to their mate at a golf course on the weekend and said, we should do this. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That is a problem. The security team should probably be involved a little bit earlier than that in the process.
But I think that's one thing that there is a lot of around AI is hype, and I suspect some of that pressure comes from the top because, and as we said, that fear of at that executive level, people thinking, oh my God, if I don't do this, then my rivals in all those other companies are already doing it, and so I need to do this. And that does force the rest of the organization to take it on, but equally maybe it means that some of those good practices around governance do get steamrolled.
That was exactly the case in this conversation I had yesterday. And it's not FOMO. It's not just, I want a shiny new thing. It is literally the other point you picked up on, which is competitive advantage. Wrongly or rightly, organizations feel that they need to be jumping on this right now, because if they leave it too late, they're done, basically.
Yeah.
Existential threat time.
Thanks.
Yeah. In terms of regulation, which is obviously part of the governance process, this is really interesting because we've got new AI laws and regulations and standards springing up here, there, and everywhere. And what makes it even more challenging is new AI regs come out, and within months they're being amended, either through lobbying or because somebody's found there's something materially wrong with them, or just the landscape has changed so fast. So I think it was the EU AI Act had amendments within 6 weeks of its original publication, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's been outpaced by, as we say, there's models and practices and all kinds of things changing too. I'm not sure there's a great deal in there about agentic AI.
Not a huge amount, no.
No. I mean, there are particular sort of use cases for the way that LLMs are used, but yeah, I'm sure there's all kinds of gaps.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that's kind of adjacent and overarching, but not specifically agentic.
Yeah.
And of course, AI is posing a number of challenges just because it's moving so quickly. It's even easy to govern what you've had for 30 years. It's not so easy to govern something that was created 5 minutes ago.
That's true. I think that's the other side of it, just that in threat horizon, just that if AI does nothing else to an organization, it pushes through a huge amount of change. And it can exhaust the organization and mean that it doesn't have time to do those other things that ordinarily would do. So it becomes a very different kind of organization, enterprise. But also, some of those things just get left behind because they just don't have time to do all those things that they usually do because the amount of things they're trying to change is so vast.
Key research findings. I've already covered the first two. Less than half of organizations had AI security governance in place, and very few had AI policies as well. I'm glad to see that that's changing. Perhaps the $1 million question here, where do business leaders think AI security governance and broader AI governance should sit? This is not where the security team thinks it should go. Business leaders think AI security governance should be the preserve of a CISO or a BISO. And more often than not, they think governance of AI in general should sit in the same place as well. And we have had a few members who have enthusiastically taken that on. Even one or two who volunteered to govern all AI and then realized that it's actually really, really complicated.
They're brave souls.
Yeah. And again, this is probably more about geography than anything else. Good luck finding AI data scientists in some corners of the world.
Yeah, I know that some organizations have like a chief AI officer, but I wonder how, if they deputize the security aspect of this because they're thinking about some of those strategic aims.
Yeah. So quickly, because we're running short of time here, through the research I did, what are the key cyber challenges? I've put them all on screen here, but the big ones here are around cyber risk. A lot of this is about misconception and perception of where the risks are. People are looking at those fancy, shiny, new theoretical risks and perhaps taking their eye off the ball a little bit and not looking at that enhanced phishing, etc., which is the real threat right now. Transparency and trust. This is probably more for the business than the security team, although IT certainly needs to know what their models are doing. But if you zoom out from that a bit, can your customers trust what you're doing with AI? Do they understand what you're doing with their data? Could be business differentiators in the next few years, I would suggest. And that previous question about where the board think AI security governance should sit within an organization leads us to a next poll in which we ask where you think it should sit.
Good question.
And having run this poll before, a number of chapter meetings and elsewhere, I can tell you immediately that the answers we get will highlight exactly who we have in our audience today. Because everyone will say, not me.
Someone else's problem.
Yeah.
I think, again, sort of those early conversations we had about AI and governance, because I think initially it did just look like just another technology. And InfoSec teams, practitioners have done that before. I've seen quite a lot of those wash through organizations. So I suspect there was a bit of an expectation that they would take it on. But once it became clear that, the kind of scale of problem change that was being pushed through and actually what AI is about, and, the fact that it's changing day to day, some of those early decisions about who should oversee it were pushed back against, because all of a sudden the business was changing completely. And it's like, well, sure, I can do that if you want me to, but you probably don't want me to be driving this, practitioners to be driving this strategy of the company. Maybe that's a problem and a decision for higher up the organization.
Yeah. Oh, and just for those people who are voting, we did have another option, which is the Chief AI Officer / AI team. But unfortunately, this platform doesn't support 6 potential poll options. So we had to drop one.
All right. Yeah, I think AI officers, AI teams are relatively rare. I have a feeling they get slightly sort of, as people on those governance committees and various things that get the role as much as anything else.
Yeah, of the ones I'm aware of, we're talking multinational companies have those.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. So the board 16%, CISO BISO 33, security team 25, risk compliance team 16, other or no clear owner 8%.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's adjusting a bit, but yeah. So board 15, CISO 30, security 23, risk team 15, other 15.
Okay.
Quite a split.
It is. Normally when I run this poll, I get 50-60% plumping for one answer.
All right.
And it's normally CISO saying the board should own it.
Or CISO saying, please take it on.
And so as part of the research we did on AI security governance, we came up with this RACI matrix. If anyone's feverishly trying to copy it, I should point out that this is just an example. There is no one size fits all. But essentially what we're saying here is, AI is such a broad concept. It's so challenging that pretty much everyone within an organization should be involved in it in some way, shape or form, with responsibility and accountability spread across a wide range of people. And ultimately, as with everything that goes on in a company, ultimate accountability goes back to the board. But beyond that, security teams, IT teams, etc., all have a different part to play helping and supporting each other here if they're going to be effective.
Yeah, I think it's sort of throwing it at the CISO and walking away is probably not the best. I mean, not to denigrate the capabilities of CISOs, but there's just so many other key factors that AI brings that, yeah, it's important that that conversation is very, very wide.
Yeah. And this brings us on to something else. And I mean, there's a bit of a thing going on here within the research team. I think this is a massive plus, but we don't just sit around a table agreeing with each other about everything. You and I had a slight difference of opinion here. Should you govern AI in isolation? I think we're agreed that that's not ideal for most companies. But maybe there are some scenarios, fast-moving companies, those in areas where legislation and enforcement are perhaps a little bit weak, might see some advantages in spinning up standalone governance so they can move super quickly. But the important thing here to highlight is this is to do with your own individual risk tolerance. Again, there's no one size fits all. This might work for you, probably doesn't work for most companies. It's probably not the right choice for large companies. And the bigger picture here, of course, is if you spin up governance as a separate entity for AI, does that mean you're going to do it with quantum in a few years' time? Did you do it with mobile devices a few years ago? In other words, are you running 10 different governance programs? If so, you might want to review that choice.
Yeah, but as well, I guess we need to acknowledge the fact that sometimes you can learn from running that AI security governance as a separate track, because if you work out, if that turns out to be better than what you have already, for whatever reason, then that might be worth plugging back into your existing governance. I think it's definitely, as part of the complication here, it's just understanding, it's not just executing on this, is understanding the sort of meta around it as well, just what else it does to your organization and how else it operates, or how else your organization operates with it. I mean, that's definitely worth understanding, because governance shouldn't be one of those things that is set in stone. It has to be adaptable, because it sort of ebbs and flows as well. And I'd imagine a lot of governance is really ebbing at the moment, because there's a lot of organizations are just saying, get on with it, because of that fear. I just want to get it done and see what happens.
Yeah, good advice there, Mark. So on screen now, if anyone wants to scribble this down quickly, some of the key areas of a AI security governance framework. I've highlighted a couple of bits here. In orange, you've got developing AI ethical principles, bias detection and mitigation. They're the areas that our members have tended to struggle the most with in terms of actually getting them in place. They're the laggards, if you like. The ones that are more challenging in terms of execution are the explainability and transparency. Again, I think these are going to be huge in the future, explaining what your models did and why, and that itself will feed into bias, which raises a number of questions around legreg as well. And of course, while the numbers have improved since I did this research, for the 50% or so back then who had nothing, that first step, defining the AI strategy and roadmap, that was the thing they were struggling with back then. But from our poll today, it looks like things are hopefully moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I suppose as well, one thing I do remember very clearly from the work I did on governance way back when, was that it was rather rueful conversations with some people who were involved in governance within their organization. And it said that, often governance aspires to do the right thing, but then gets ignored. And the organization, but that's kind of the role. I mean, the governance is there to lay out the risks and present them to the organization, which then can sign off on them and say, we're willing to accept those. And maybe with AI, some of them are doing that. I think that's a risky position to take, because we just don't know. And stepping in, it's not like you are some of those other risks where you accept them because you've got a good sense of the damage they could do. We just, in some respects, we just don't know. But again, a lot of organizations seem to be taking that step.
Yeah. So, has anybody got any questions?
We do have a question actually from Uday. So it is to do with shadow AI. It is becoming a significant challenge in large organizations. What are the most effective approaches to identifying and cataloging AI usage across the enterprise? And are there readily available tools or solutions that can help build and maintain this inventory?
That one is actually going to be a bit tricky for me to answer because we're vendor agnostic. So I've not even looked at the vendors, and therefore I haven't really looked into the tools either. But what I can say perhaps is alongside that, look at the root causes. Why do you potentially have a shadow AI problem? Is it because you're blanket banning the use of all AI, which I have seen in some organizations, or is it because you're making the processes for employees to pick and choose tools they might like to use too difficult?
Yeah.
So certainly, look at the why as much as the what exactly is happening as well. And sorry, I can't answer the broader question.
No, but I think as well, it's just don't be complacent, because I imagine a lot of organizations think, hey, we've got this thing sorted, we put in the blocks, we know what people are using. And unfortunately, AI can be quite useful for certain tasks. And you can think, yeah, we've got our hands around this problem, but I suspect people are using it in all kinds of ways you don't quite know, which is part of the problem. That the risk as well, just that some of that usage is exposing you to in all kinds of ways. Your organization, some of that data is going missing, some of those permissions are getting shared, and all of a sudden, you've got some of those quickly made applications just spoiling it for everyone. But Lee, as well, I did want to ask, because you're doing some work at the moment on IAM and some of the governance aspects of that. Is there any crossover here with AI? I don't know if there's a sort of, I know you in the relatively early stages of that project, but that governance paper you're doing on IAM and how you manage it is quite a piece of work. So I wonder if there's any crossover there.
So after this paper about governance, I will actually be doing a separate standalone paper purely about IAM and AI. So that's to come. But even in terms of the governance paper, we can see where the challenges are coming. Members and other people I speak to say that IAM has been well understood for decades, really. Although you can make arguments about how well executed it is. But certainly AI is muddying the waters because it's not just like another non-human identity. We're talking agentic, we could be talking thousands, tens of thousands, millions of new identities on your estate that behave somewhat differently to humans and other non-human accounts, because they're always on and they're always talking to each other. In many cases, they view each other as trusted sources. So there's a risk of credential sharing. That's why I need to do a separate paper on it to go into it in depth. But it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, because I think there is significant disquiet within Facebook at the moment, because it has declared that it is putting in place keyboard monitors and all kinds of other ways to effectively digitally clone a lot of its employees, largely because at the end of that, I assume it's going to fire quite a lot of people and can have their digital doppelgangers, doing the work that they were otherwise doing. And I certainly, for Threat Horizon, I'm going to be considering that, just how far those digital doubles go. What do you do with those employees? Are you going to have to pay ransoms for agents that have been kidnapped? I mean, I don't know where that would lead, but certainly worth exploring and asking the questions. And that's what Threat Horizon is all about. We do have another question as well coming in from Anna Bryson at Computer Center. Is it likely there would be government AI-related certification similar to Cyber Essentials Plus? Interesting.
Is there something like that now? I don't know, because obviously there's so many different countries across the world. The only one I think I'm right in saying that has something right now is Scotland, strangely. I was aware of the UK potentially working on something as of a few months ago, but I've not kept up to date on that. So my answer to that would be, right now, the answer is possibly, and longer term, I would fully expect there to be.
I'm fairly sure the NCSC has issued some advice about this, but it's not sort of a certification scheme. And similarly with NIST, again, came up in Canada last week, just people talking about some of those frameworks and how they're being adapted for some of the, and also how they fall short. So yeah, I'd be amazed if there wasn't something being worked on, even if that's just industry partners talking to each other about how they do this kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm going to say it was around about October, November last year. I was speaking to someone in the civil service who said that this was, being seriously looked at.
It makes sense. I mean, I think it's sort of, because if lots of organisations are using it, then sure, developing that good practice makes sense. And as we should say, in SOGP, the AI parts of that have been beefed up. So yeah, there's plenty of good practice there, and Lee's papers as well, just a great source of very widely drawn from our membership and their experiences. But I think that's about it, isn't it? We're pretty much done, almost top of the hour. Lee, it's been great, and it wraps up the session. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have more, please reach out. We're both available via the usual channels on the ISF. But if you want to, and if you do want to continue the conversation, we have our digital community. If you're not a member of that, then get on board. It's a great place to share things and chat to other members. And also we have ISF Live as well. Please leave feedback. We appreciate your thoughts. And don't forget to join us later today at 2 o'clock for the 4th session in our webinar week. That one is called Closing the Gap, Securing Identity Across Humans, Machines and AI. Is that you again, Lee?
It may very well be.
Gosh. You're never off screen. Great stuff. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you again.
Thank you.